Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to What's New in ForeFlight. There's always something new in ForeFlight. This year is no exception. We've been working on a lot of cool features, and we're excited to show them all to you today. My name is Ryan McBride. I'm the Vice President of Product Design at ForeFlight. My team at ForeFlight is responsible for making the features within the application easy to use, easy to understand. For those who are new to ForeFlight, just a quick background. The company was founded in 2007 by two gentlemen, Tyson Weiss and Jason Miller. Tyson and Jason are both pilots. They met online, actually, through some discussion forums. And 2007 was a special year because that's the year that the iPhone was introduced. And so Tyson and Jason got to talking online. They'd actually never met in person before, but they were both interested in the capabilities of this new iPhone, and they started working on some different ideas. The first version, the first functionality that they built was actually a very simple METAR reader. So you could enter an airport code, and it would spit out a METAR for you. We've come a long way since then, of course. In 2010, the iPad was introduced, and we haven't looked back. We're proud to say we've been the #1 selling aviation app since that time, 2010. We believe we build the most elegant, high-performing apps in aviation, and we pride ourselves on something we call our fanatical pilot support team. Has anyone here contacted our support team before in the past? Yeah, so when you talk to anyone on our support team, they're all pilots, most are instrument rated, they're all ForeFlight experts. They're available 7 days a week, and I'm going to give you some information at the end of the presentation on how best to contact them. I also want to point out that at the end of the presentation, we're going to have 15-20 minutes for questions and answers. So if you have any questions about the things I'm discussing today, please just remember that question, write it down, and at the end, we'll be able to get to it. So since ForeFlight was last at Oshkosh, there's been a whole lot of feature development in the application. There's been 24 releases of ForeFlight since we were last here. And in those 24 releases, there's been over 100 new features. You may have noticed over the past year, 2 years, the pace of development for the ForeFlight application is actually accelerated. We've gotten faster and more efficient. Our team has grown. Our customer base has grown. And so we're moving faster than ever. Pretty much every month, on the month, there is a new ForeFlight release in the App Store. I want to point out, this is not going to be a how-to presentation, okay? So we're not going to go into the nitty-gritty details and settings and configuration and real-world scenarios for all these features. There's just not enough time. This is going to be more of an overview, okay? So the idea is to expose you to all the different new things that are out there so you can dig deeper into those things on your own time or visit us in the booth and get a demo of those things or come see another presentation. Speaking of other presentations, so today you can see we're doing the What's New overview. That's here at 10 o'clock. But at 1 o'clock right here, we're going to do another presentation. It's a scenario-based training forum. So we're going to go into these features in real-world, in-flight scenarios and do a deeper dive on each of them and how they can be useful to you when you fly. And of course, we have a variety of other forums going on throughout the week. Tomorrow at 8:30 right here, we have our Power Users Forum. That's for expert users, folks who are really comfortable with the app and want to learn more about it. Then we have our Fundamentals course following that. I'll be teaching that one. That's for folks who are brand new to the application or maybe just want to brush up on the basics. We're going to start from assuming zero knowledge, and we're going to go all the way to filing flight plans and doing briefings and all that stuff. I'll leave the schedule forum up at the end of the presentation so you can copy it down if you're interested. So when I was putting together this presentation, I was thinking, oh my gosh, okay, so we have 60 minutes, we have 24 releases, over 100 features. How do we fit all that stuff into one presentation? And I decided it would be a good idea to kind of organize all these features into different categories and go through them one at a time for each of the categories. So the categories of features we're going to be talking about are first, weather and planning features. That's sort of the bread and butter of ForeFlight, right? Tons of weather capability, really, really high performance planning capabilities in the application, and a lot of new features related to that. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about customer request features. You know, most of us at ForeFlight are pilots, and honestly, a big motivator for putting out new features is just thinking about what are the cool things we would want to use, right, when we fly ourselves. But of course, customers such as yourselves often ask us, hey, can you do this? It would be neat if the application could do that. And so we've added a lot of different new features that are the result of those customer requests, and I'm going to get into those today. And then finally, make it easy. You know, we're always trying to make the application easy and intuitive, and we've been working on a variety of new changes to the design of the app to make it easier to use in flight and on the ground. So I'll get into some of those features as well. Let's start with the weather and planning category. The first thing I want to talk about is some enhancements we've made to the profile view. For those who are not familiar with the profile view, it's available in the Pro subscription and up, and you can access it via the Maps page. So here we are on the Maps tab. I'm on Maps down here at the bottom. And if I go up to the flight plan button, that FPL button up at the top, I can open that and I get the flight plan drawer. And this is where we enter all of our route information, get a nav log, that sort of thing. But you'll notice over here, there's a button that says Profile. If I tap on that, I get a profile depiction of whatever route I've planned. Now, by default, the profile will show me all of the waypoints along the route, any terrain or obstacles along the route, and it'll automatically calculate my top of climb and top of descent based on my aircraft's performance. In addition to that, though, we've been adding new features to the profile to make it even more useful. You might be familiar with this button up in the top left-hand corner. That's the layer selector on the map. That's how we select charts and different types of weather layers like radar. We've added a layer selector to the profile itself. See, it's the same button, it looks the same icon, but it applies just to the profile view. If I tap on this button, I have a variety of different options, and most of these are new. So the first one is airspace. Airspace has been out for a while now, but it allows you to visualize all the different airspace along your route. You can see I tapped on that now, I see all the airspace in my profile view. In addition, though, we've added icing forecasts, so you can see where the icing is going to be at different altitudes along your route, potentially adjust your cruising altitude based on that information. You can do the same thing with turbulence. So we have a global turbulence forecast, and you can turn on turbulence and see where the bumps are going to be along your route, maybe make some adjustments to your route based on that. And then finally, clouds. We finally added forecast cloud information into the profile, so you can very quickly see what the forecast bases and tops of the clouds are. I want to point out here that this is a really long route. This is a cross-country route from LA to New York. But this profile view is interactive, so you can tap on it, you can pinch and zoom on it, you can zoom all the way in to get more detail out of whatever you're interested in looking at. And it's interactive, so you can tap on the things you see in the profile view. So for example, if I was flying this route and I was interested in what some of this airspace, those blue boxes were, that I was going to be flying over, I can just tap on that airspace. The profile view highlights, you get a label there, what that airspace is, in this case Grand Canyon National Park, and what the altitudes are. And then you can see highlighted on the map as well what that airspace looks like. So a common question we get after showing all these new profile features is, well, what about the iPhone, right? It would be really handy to have this on the iPhone. We agree. Profile isn't yet available on the iPhone, but I can tell you today it's coming soon. We're working on it. I want to give you a sneak peek of what that looks like. You may be familiar with something on iOS, on the iPad, called multitasking. This allows you to run multiple applications side by side. ForeFlight supports this today. For example, here's ForeFlight side by side with just a regular web browser. And you can actually adjust the multitasking to get skinnier or wider, depending on what you prefer. Well, you'll notice this skinny version here, that's basically the size of an iPhone, right? And so we're going to be bringing this interface, this user interface, to the iPhone soon. I can tell you, from the design perspective, taking all of these complicated features in ForeFlight and slimming them down from an iPad all the way to an iPhone, it's a serious design software challenge, right? But we're working on it, and the profile will be out soon in an upcoming release on the iPhone. 3D route enhancements. So we've been working on a variety of ways to visualize information better in the application. We think 3D visualization has a lot of potential to improve situational awareness for pilots, especially in the pre-flight environment, when you're, for example, planning a route or briefing an approach before you go out and fly, that sort of thing. I want to talk about some of the enhancements we've made to 3D features in the application. So here we are back on the map view, and we have the flight plan drawer open. And for those who are on the Performance Plus subscription, they have a button here that looks like a little globe, a 3D globe with an airplane. This is called 3D Route Preview. It allows you to preview any of the route elements or procedures that you've added to your route. You can actually visualize that in 3D. And you can do that by tapping on that Route Preview button. So here's our route out of LA. So we've added a departure. We can see all the waypoints. You can use one finger to zoom around or pinch zoom. See all these 3D obstacles? That's not out yet, that's coming soon. So in an upcoming release of ForeFlight, we'll have 3D obstacles in this view as well. You can pan around in third person, or you can switch to a first person view to see what that's gonna look like. If I zoom our route over, if we look at the layer selector down here, we can actually look at a variety of different types of weather as well. So I just turned on turbulence, and I can visualize where the turbulence is gonna be by dragging up and down the altitudes and seeing where is that turbulence gonna be. Here's an example of some turbulence that's forecast along our route below our planned cruising altitude. I can do the same thing with icing, move up and down in altitude, see where the icing is going to be. So this is 3D Route Preview, and it's something we're really excited about. A little bit later in the presentation, I'm going to give you a few more tips on how to use that. Another area where we think 3D can be pretty useful is familiarizing yourself with an airport environment. If you're flying into an airport for the first time, be it in the day or at night, it's a good idea to get a sense of what that airport's going to look like from the air and what the terrain around that airport's going to look like as well. In ForeFlight, you can tap on any airport. So I'll tap on Oshkosh here. And if you're a Performance Plus customer, in the airport information on any airport, you'll see 3D view as a button. And you can tap on that 3D view, and you'll see something like this. This is a 3D depiction of the airport. You can turn on traffic, and this will pull in a live feed of traffic around that airport. Actually, in the booth in Hangar C, we were watching the air show. We couldn't see it outside because we were in the hangar. We were watching the air show here in Airport 3D. It was kind of fun. But this is actually a FlightAware data feed. It comes in over the internet, and it pumps it right into the application. Another interesting thing about the 3D view, though, is you can see here it's daytime that we're looking at. But what if I was flying into the airport at night, and I wanted to familiarize myself with what it looked like at night, what the lighting systems were at that airport, what to expect? Well, I have a button down here. This is new. And you can see right now we're in day mode. The sun is selected, but I can select the moon instead. I can select the moon instead, and it will transition to a night mode. And this might be a little hard to see in the back. I apologize for that. But this is actually the real-world lighting system. So every airport has true to real-life, accurate rendered lighting systems. And if you zoom in here, even the Pappy Vassies are dynamic based on the camera angle. So this is a really cool way to visualize what the airport's going to look like at night. And it works at any airport in the world. Another new thing we've been working on is what we call our global daily and hourly forecast. A lot of customers tell us there's a ton of weather in ForeFlight, it's great, but these are all aviation-specific weather products, and so they have a limited outlook, right? They don't go out as far as you might find on something like the Weather Channel, right? And so we decided, okay, we can do that. We can build in a longer-term forecast if you're interested in doing some longer-term planning. We call that our global daily and hourly forecast. It's a proprietary weather model. It comes to us from the Weather Company, which is derived out of IBM's business. And it's actually a model that it works worldwide. So you can get a weather forecast for any arbitrary latitude or longitude you want. I'll show you how to access it. So if you're interested in a forecast for an airport, you can just go to the airport view. You can select the Weather tab. And of course, we have all the different types of weather that's normally in ForeFlight here. But the new option is daily. Okay, so if you select daily, you're going to see all of the days, 10 days out, and you can scroll through the days and see what the overall weather is going to be for each of those days. And then you can tap on one of those days, and you get an hourly breakdown. And you can move left and right with your finger. Let me do that here. You can move left and right with your finger, select different days. You'll notice along the bottom of the screen, there's a timeline. See that green bar? And there's a little bit of blue there? That's the flight category that's forecast at that time. So we can see between Wednesday night into Thursday morning, there were some marginal conditions forecast when I recorded this video. So that's our daily, hourly, and daily and hourly weather forecast, and we're pretty excited about it. That's available to all customers. I want to point out, too, I mentioned this forecast isn't just available at airports. It's available at any arbitrary latitude and longitude. So you can actually get a weather forecast for your driveway or your mother-in-law's house or whatever you want in ForeFlight. In order to do that, all you need to do is go onto the map and tap anywhere on the map that you want a forecast for, okay? And then in the top right-hand corner, you can see there's a weather button. You can tap on that weather button, and this will give you the forecast for that area you tapped on. You can see this is a forecast for that specific latitude and longitude that I tapped on. So it's truly global, anywhere in the world. Another really neat feature that we think is going to make understanding weather a little bit more intuitive is something we call the dynamic winds and temperatures layer. We've been working on better visualization technologies, and we heard from customers that the current winds aloft forecast is useful, but it would be nice if it was a little bit easier to understand what the wind trajectories are, what the frontal movements are, that sort of thing. And so that's this. This is our new dynamic winds and temps. I'll show you how it works. So here we are on the map view. I'm going to go up into the layer selector again in the top left-hand corner. And I have two new options in the layer selector. I have winds and temps and winds and speeds. Okay, so I'll show you winds and temps first. Let me turn that one on. This is what it looks like. So we can see what the global wind patterns are doing. I can pan around, pinch zoom to get more detail. You'll notice at the bottom of the screen is a legend. This legend is available to all the animated layers. It's a new feature, so you can very quickly see what the colors actually represent. In the case of this layer, the winds and temps layer, we can see wind direction, but the actual color represents the forecast temperatures at that altitude. Compare that to this one, the winds and speeds, and you can see that we now have we're now using knots. So the color indicates the speed of the wind rather than the temperature at that location. And again, this legend, this is available to any layer that has an animatable component. So radar, satellite, dynamic winds, and temps. If you don't like this legend, you don't want to see it anymore, you can turn it off. You can go into the settings menu up at the top of the screen, and you can open up that menu and scroll down until you see map legend. And then you can turn that map legend off, and then you won't see it anymore. So those are some new weather and planning features. I want to talk about customer requests now. One big customer request that we got over the past couple of years was, I use ForeFlight to fly IFR. It would be really great if I could add holding patterns, if ForeFlight could visualize my holds for me in the application. So we said, okay, so we built that. We call it Hold Advisor. It's available to pro customers and up. And when you go into the Procedure Advisor in your map, that's the procedure button up here. That's how you add different types of IFR and VFR procedures to your route. When you open that Procedure Advisor up, there's a new option, and the option is Holding Pattern. And so I can select Holding Pattern, and ForeFlight will give me, it'll default to the fix it assumes I'm going to be holding at based on my route, but I can change that. I can go up to the fix, and I can select any other fix in my route to hold at, or I can enter a custom fix that I want to hold at. Once I've done that, I can select different components of my hold. So my inbound, outbound courses, I can tap on the numbers and change that. I can also change how I want my hold to be depicted, either by a set distance or using time, and right turns or left turns. And then I can optionally specify my altitude for the hold, my speed, and my EFC for the hold. If I'm happy with it, I can add it to my route. And when I do that, two things happen. One, I get my hold plotted right here directly on my map. Also, up in the top in the flight plan drawer, I have a new bubble for my hold. So you can see it's a 318 course, right turns, 1 minute. The reason we added a bubble for the hold is so that you can change the hold later. So you can modify it, remove it, whatever you want. All these bubbles up there in the flight plan drawer are interactive. You can tap on them, drag them around, open up a menu, learn more about them. So if you tap on the hold bubble, you have a variety of different options here, but one of them is edit hold, right? So if you want to change your hold, you can tap on that, you get this menu, and you can make your changes and then tap add to route, and your hold will be modified on the map view. Of course, you can always directly interact with the map itself in ForeFlight. So instead of tapping on the bubble for the hold, you can just tap on the hold itself, the fix that the hold is on. You can just tap on that. And when you do that, you get a new option here in the information menu, edit hold. And you can tap on that, and you can modify your hold that way too. So 3 ways to modify holds, right? Using the Procedure Advisor button, tapping on the bubble for the hold, or tapping on the fix itself on the map. Speaking of IFR, another customer request was timers. A lot of folks wanted a timer built into ForeFlight for convenience, and so we've added that to the application as well. When you're on the Maps view, you can go down to the bottom right-hand corner where it says More. We call this the More menu, and you can open that up. And at the bottom of the More menu is a timer. Now, by default, it's a count up timer, so you can tap to start, and it'll just start counting up for you. But you can change this to a count down timer by tapping on the arrow. And when you do that, it switches to a count down timer. And I can tap on it to set it. And when I do that, I'm able to enter how long I want this timer to count, if I want it to repeat or not. And when the timer expires, you'll get a notification directly on your map. You don't have to open up the menu. It'll show up right here on the map. And like all alerts in ForeFlight, if you have a Bluetooth headset connected to your iPad, you'll hear that alert in your headset as well. That's true for timers, it's true for traffic alerts, hazard alerts, TFR alerts, runway avoidance alerts, that sort of thing. This next feature is a customer request, but this is pretty unique. This is something that we haven't really done before. And I'll get to why in a minute, but this feature is called taxi routing. And it's very simple. It allows you to programmatically add in your taxi route using your keyboard, essentially, to very quickly jot it out, instead of using like a stylus or something to draw. And you can access it on a taxi diagram. Whenever you're looking at any taxi diagram, you can go up into the taxi route option up at the top, and it'll open up this view here. And so you can see a depiction of our airport, our surface diagram. And this is ForeFlight asking us, okay, where do you want to taxi to? Okay, so let's say we wanted to taxi to runway 9, okay? So we're going to enter runway 9 in this box up here. So I'm going to tap runway 9, and it gets added to the box, right? And look what happened to the map here. Here's our current GPS position all the way over here near Kilo. And you can see ForeFlight has already plotted a taxi route all the way out to runway 9. This is not your taxi clearance, okay? This is just ForeFlight telling you this is the most efficient way to get from A to B, okay? But obviously, we have to taxi however ground tells us to taxi. So let's say we get a taxi clearance, okay? And let's say they taxi, they clear us to runway 9, and they say cross runway 27. So we're cleared to cross 27, okay? So I'll select cross, and then I'll select 27. And when I do that, you can see I get a little green marker right on the intersection to 27. And that tells me good to go. I'm cleared to cross 27. That's what the green bubble means, okay? Now let's say then we're cleared to taxi down Bravo. So I'll select Bravo. And maybe there's something going on. They ask us to hold short of Bravo 2. Okay, so I'll select hold short, and then Bravo 2. So what do we have here? We have a taxi route out of a hangar here, going up to cleared to cross runway 27 with that green bubble, and then cleared to taxi. We got that green line cleared to taxi all the way down Bravo. But then look, it changes to red, right? Because we have to hold short at Bravo 2. And you can come back and modify this route whenever you like. But one of the neat things about this is you can then close this. You can close this view by tapping the close button in the top left. And that taxi route that we entered is now visible. It's been overlaid on top of the taxi diagram for us. In addition to that, if you go back to the aeronautical map, which actually has the taxi diagrams just built in, you just got to zoom in. The taxi route, it might be, again, a little hard to see in the back, but the taxi route's actually drawn on top of the map here as well. So that's the taxi route editor. I mentioned a few minutes ago, this is kind of a unique feature for us. It's a unique feature because it's an opt-in beta feature, okay? There's some features, when we're working on new features in ForeFlight, quality assurance is one of our biggest teams at the company because the application has to work, right? It has to be stable. It's mission critical. But there are some features where we just need to get it out there and start getting your feedback in order to make it better. In the case of the taxi route editor, the way that the software databases work means that we need to get customer feedback in order to link all these taxiways to one another, right, to make it work. And so because of that, we're releasing this as a beta feature. We have a new program. It's called ForeFlight Labs. And you can opt into ForeFlight Labs to get access to new beta features. To do this, you can go to the More menu in the bottom right-hand corner, and then you can go to your Account section. And when you open up the Account section, there's a new ForeFlight Labs section here. And you can turn on any beta features that are available to you. Now, right now, the taxi routes feature is available to performance customers, but over time, we'll have different beta features that are available to different subscription levels, and you can choose to opt into them and test them out here. We only ask that if you choose to opt in, if you run into an issue, let us know. Please let us know. Send us the feedback because that's how we make it better. If you do choose to opt in, we'll give you a little warning. This warning says, always rely on airport signage and charts for taxiing. This feature is for general advisory only. Expect improvements in the data and algorithms over time, right? So this feature is going to get better over time as more and more beta customers provide us feedback about it. So that's the taxi editor. I want to talk about some customer requests. I want to finish up with customer requests and move on to a few features that we think are going to make using the application a little bit easier. The first one is something we call flight binders. So in ForeFlight, we have a plates tab, right? And the plates tab allows you to add different binders and organize your plates into categories. But we heard from some customers, especially customers who are flying like hard IFR, day in, day out, maybe corporate pilots, that it would be nice if there was just a more streamlined interface for selecting my procedures. They basically asked us, make procedure selection easier. And so we put our heads together, and we think we've done that. And it's called Flight Binders, and I'd like to give you a live demo of it. So here's my iPad, and I'm going to create a route, okay? So let's say we're flying from the Chicago area out to maybe Denver, okay? Now, I'm going to open up that procedure advisor, and let's say we're flying IFR, right? So I'm going to fly, maybe I'll fly an arrival into Denver, and then I'll go back in here, and maybe I'll shoot an approach. select the approach, add that to my route. Okay, so I've added an arrival and an approach into Denver. Now let's say I want to pull up those procedures that I've added very quickly. Well, I can do that. I can go to the plates view. And this should look familiar, right? This is the existing plate binders that we have today. But up top, up in the top left, you can see there's a new section. It says flight binders. You can create these binders, and they're specific to the flight you're planning. And ForeFlight will automatically populate all the procedures you need based on what you've already planned. So you don't have to go hunting for all the procedures. So in order to add a flight binder, I can just tap this button, Add Flight Binder. And ForeFlight says, would you like to create a flight binder for what you're planning right now on the map? That's Chicago to Denver. Or would you like to create a flight binder from a recent flight that you've planned in the flights view? In this case, Los Angeles to Palm Springs. Or would you like to just create an empty binder? Well, in this case, I want to create a binder for that flight that I'm planning, Chicago to Denver. So I'll just tap on it once. So with one tap, I'm going to close this so we can go full screen. With one tap, I have all of my procedures already organized for me for both my departure and destination. So in this case, we're looking at O'Hare, the airport diagram. But I can go down to Denver and I can select the arrivals into Denver, and it's already selected the arrival that I had planned on the map. I didn't have to go hunt for it. It knew what procedure I needed. Same with the approach. I can select an approach, and here's the approach that I had selected. Now you can add multiple approaches, multiple arrivals, whatever you want, to this view. And you can do that. Maybe you're worried, maybe they're going to switch our approach, right? So I'll load another approach just in case. I'll tap on the approach button, and I can preview the approaches by tapping on them like this, or I can add them to the binder by tapping the check mark. Okay, now they're added to the binder, and then I can swipe back and forth between those two approach procedures that I've added. Very simple. So this is our flight binders feature. We're pretty excited about it, and it's available in the latest version of ForeFlight. Okay, I want to talk about some of the iPhone improvements and iPad multitasking improvements. I mentioned earlier we've been working on bringing new things to the iPhone. You know, the iPhone has gotten so much more powerful and capable, even in the past couple of years. It used to be, you know, back in the mid 2010 to 2015, I would say, the vast majority of customers were using ForeFlight on their iPads, and still are. But more and more customers are using their iPhone to do planning, to check weather, things like that. And so a common request we get is, why is the iPhone different? You know, I learned the iPad. I don't want to have to learn a new EFB on my iPhone. We hear you. We've been working hard on making the applications look and work exactly the same. Today, the applications on iPhone and iPad are 99% the same. They're virtually identical. The menus are all the same. The terminology is the same. The navigation is the same. The one exception to that is the profile view, but again, we are working on it. Here it is in multitasking again. You can see that profile view scale all the way down to an iPhone size. So we're working on bringing the profile to the iPhone soon. Speaking of some of these improvements though, you know, if you're using ForeFlight on an iPad, maybe you use a set of tabs, right? Maybe you often go to the maps view on the iPad. Maybe you often go to the plates view or the weather imagery view. But some customers use their iPhones differently. Maybe they want to use their iPhone for their checklist, right? Or they want to use their iPhone for their logbook. We got some requests from customers to be able to customize the navigation, customize the tab bar on their iPads and their iPhones, depending on how they want to use that device. And so we built that functionality. In order to customize the tab bar on a given device, you need to go to the More menu. And when you open up the More menu, there's a new button up here, Edit Tab Order. Okay, so this will allow you to specify the order of the tabs and what tabs show up here along the bottom. This is not synchronized across devices, okay? So you can set up your iPad to be differently from your iPhone if you want. When I tap Edit Tab Order, I can drag and drop the tabs. Maybe I don't care about imagery, but maybe I really care about checklist. I want that to be my first tab, so I'll move that up to the top, and then I'll hit Save. Okay? And when I hit save, my tabs have changed to that order that I set in the menu. So now my checklist is first, and now I don't see imagery, right? So you can customize that however you want. Again, this works across devices. It doesn't synchronize, but the feature works the same. So you can set up your iPhone tab bar to be a little different than your iPad tab bar if you wish. Another recent improvement we made is related to how you interact with the map view in ForeFlight. When you are, let me go back here. When you are, in a previous version of ForeFlight, whenever you were tapping on something on the map, you would tap on it, right, and then you'd get a menu, and that menu would show you information about the thing you tapped on. But sometimes the menu covered up the thing that you were trying to look at. And we heard from a lot of customers that was very frustrating, and so we've made an improvement to how that works. When you tap on an item now on the map, instead of a menu popping up on top of that thing, it slides out from the side, okay? And it persists. So you can move around, pinch, zoom on the map, tap on different things, and this menu will always be here on the side. Now it doesn't cover up the thing you're looking at. On an iPhone, it doesn't come in from the side, it comes up from the bottom, just because of the aspect ratio of the iPhone, but it works exactly the same. You can tap around, pinch, zoom, move around, and keep that information up. Another new feature we've recently announced is Logbook on web. Who here uses the ForeFlight Logbook on their iPad? Good amount of people. Yeah, using the ForeFlight Logbook is really handy, right? Because if you're flying with ForeFlight, ForeFlight knows where you took off from, where you landed, how many takeoffs and landings you did, what the time was, if it was day or night, etc. Right? So it can log these entries for you automatically to save you time. And that's really handy. But we heard from customers that, it would be really nice if I could just do this with a keyboard and mouse sometimes. Maybe I have a bunch of entries I want to add to my logbook. Sometimes the iPad can be a little clumsy for that sort of thing. So we added Logbook to the web. If you go to ForeFlight.com, which, by the way, if you haven't gone to ForeFlight.com yet, you should. You can log into ForeFlight.com with your existing ForeFlight account information and do all of your planning and get your weather briefings and everything on your home computer. There's no software to install. It's all in your regular web browser, and it's included with your existing subscription. Everything you do, all your planning you do on the web, synchronizes to your iPad automatically, so it makes it really handy. But the latest feature on the web is the logbook. So you can go in there, you can create different entries, modify entries, you can get currency reports, generate all different types of reporting on those entries. And we think it's going to be a much easier way to modify and create entries on your home computer. Another thing we have been working on is something we call Augmented Procedures. Back in, I think it was 2015, 2016 maybe, we announced something called the Global Aeronautical Map. If you're not familiar, it's the first option in the layer selector in the top left-hand corner. This is a special type of aeronautical map. Most of the maps in ForeFlight are scanned versions of the paper chart, right? So it's basically a VFR sectional that we scan it, then we trim the edges off of it, and then we stitch them all together so it's easy to use on an iPad. But there's a problem with this. There's a problem with these scan charts. If you're flying south, for example, but you're tracking nose up, the chart's upside down, and you can't read anything, right? So we introduced what we call our global aeronautical maps, which are dynamic, data-driven maps. They know which way you're flying. The map is rendered on the fly on the device, and so the labels will always be right side up as you fly. We think this technology, the ability to render out maps and procedures in real time on a device, instead of relying on a scanned version of that procedure, we think that's the future. And so we've been investing in more technologies and thinking about how do we make more of this content dynamic and easier to use. This is the latest version of that. We call it Augmented Procedures. I'll show you how it works. Again, here we are in the map view in ForeFlight. I'm going to go back up into that Procedure button, top right, and I'm going to add an approach. In this case, we're flying into Portland, Maine. Anyone been to Portland, Maine before? It's a beautiful town. We have a ForeFlight office there, actually. I love Portland. I'm going to select an approach into Portland, Maine. And when I do that, I get a list of all my approaches here. Now, you'll notice there's a couple things going on here. I see some blue labels. I see some red labels. The blue labels are telling me the best, this approach to this runway is favored based on the winds right now, based on the latest METAR. The red ones, where it says runway closed, if there is a NOTAM out that applies to a runway or a given approach, we're going to highlight that NOTAM up top. So you don't do all the work and dive into that approach and set it up and configure it when the runway is actually NOTAM closed. Anyway, I'm going to select an approach here. I'm going to select the ILS runway 11. And then I'm going to select a transition. I'll select con, and I get a preview of that approach. This is the new part, the bottom part here. These are minima for the approach. The minima are basically derived directly out of the chart information, where you go over and down to select your minima. But it's dynamic, meaning we only show you the minima that are relevant to you right now in your aircraft that you're flying, based on the current status at the airport. I can configure my aircraft status by changing aircraft category and equipment status, because as we all know, these are the things that change what minima we're going to have to abide by when we fly the approach. So I can change that. I can set it up once. And then once I've done that, I can select one of the minima here. So why would I want to do this? Why would I want to select a minima in the procedure advisor? Well, frankly, it's so that you don't forget it. ForeFlight will bookmark your minima for you. When I add it to my route, I now have all of my altitude restrictions for my approach, and then see the pink box? That's my minimum. That's the missed approach point, and we're going to highlight your actual real minima there. I want to also point out that this is available in 3D preview as well. So if I tap on the 3D preview button, here's that approach into Portland, and I can fly it in 3D before I even get into my airplane, get a sense of what it's going to look like. Here's all of the approach fixes with all of their names and their altitude restrictions. And as I zoom in and get a little bit closer to my runway in Portland, I get my little pink bubble there, and that's my minima as a reminder. So there's a whole lot more in ForeFlight. We're always working on new things. One thing that there's not really much to show about it, it's more of just a behind-the-scenes feature that I think I would like to mention is we built something into the latest version of ForeFlight that makes background downloads much more useful. So you can actually open up ForeFlight Mobile on your iPad now and switch to another app, do other things on your iPad, put your iPad on your desk, and if there's downloads available, ForeFlight will download it all in the background. It doesn't even have to be running on the iPad screen, so that's really handy. Tons and tons more features. Check out some of our forums the rest of this week. Again, at 1 o'clock here today, Thomas, my colleague Thomas, is going to be going through real-world scenario planning. So he's going to take these features and apply them to real-world VFR and IFR flying. And then, of course, Friday, we have our advanced course, Power Users, followed by Fundamentals. And then, again, on Saturday, we have What's New in Fundamentals. Also, we're in Hangar C all week. Come check us out. We're right in the middle of the booth. Right in the middle of the hangar. You can't miss our booth. Couple different resources I want to highlight here. ForeFlight.com/videos. That's not just a marketing page, okay? We intentionally, every time we release a new feature, we know everyone wants to know about how to use that feature in the real world. So every time there's a new feature, we make a little 5-minute video about it. What it is, how to get to it, how to use it in flight, etc. Those videos are on our page, ForeFlight.com/videos. This course, along with all of our other courses this week at Oshkosh, are also being recorded, and they will be put up on our video page after the show as well. So if you missed something, or you want to come back and review what you saw here today, that'll be on that page. Check out ForeFlight.com/support to get in contact with our pilot support team. You can also email them, team@ForeFlight.com. They're available 7 days a week. If you prefer phone support, that's no problem. Just email us your phone number and a time that you're available, and we'll give you a call. Easy. And finally, ForeFlight.com/releases. You know, there's always different new releases in ForeFlight. Every month on the month, we've been releasing new application updates. And if you want to get caught up on what's the latest release and what's all the features in it and that sort of thing, check out ForeFlight.com/releases. It's kind of like a timeline. You can scroll down, see all the releases and all the things that were in those releases, and click on them and watch a video about how they work. So that concludes our presentation on what's new features. Thank you so much for coming. I hope it was useful. I hope you learned something today. We got plenty of time for questions, if anyone has any questions. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, so the question is, let's say I have a paper logbook, right? And maybe I want to switch to using the digital logbook in ForeFlight. How do I get all my stuff, all my entries into ForeFlight? There's a couple ways you can do it. The first way is you can go to ForeFlight.com, and we have a template. It's a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet. And you can fill out that template with the different types of entries you have, okay? And once you save it, it'll save to the web, and it'll filter down to your mobile application. So you can do it on your computer, on ForeFlight.com, and it'll all flow down into your iPad. The other way to do this is if you don't want to type in all the individual entry information, the logbook has something called a catch-up entry. And the idea is you can summarize, okay, I have this amount of time and type, or this amount of IFR time, etc. Instead of entering all the entries individually, you just say, this is what I have here, and then you start from there in ForeFlight. And it'll factor those numbers in, okay? Yes, sir, in the yellow. Sure, so the question is, how do I find out what the latest version of iOS, the operating system on the iPad, that ForeFlight supports is? The best way to do that is to go to our support page, ForeFlight.com/support. We have information there on the latest version of iOS. The latest version of iOS that we support right now is 14.7. 14.7. So iOS 15, you may be familiar. Apple announced a new version of iOS coming out, iOS 15. That's not yet fully supported by ForeFlight, but obviously it will be. We just need to do some testing before we give you the all clear. Other questions? Yes, sir. Yeah, so the question is this taxi routing, when I was entering the taxi routing and visualizing it on the surface diagram, will that work on a Jeppesen taxi diagram? And the answer is yes, it will. It'll work on not every single airport is supported right now. But if an airport is supported and you have a Jeppesen chart for it, it will work. Yeah. Other questions? Yes, sir. Yeah. So the question is, ForeFlight can interface with a variety of different types of hardware, portable devices, installed panel avionics. Is there a list somewhere of all the things that are supported and what's supported? Yes, there is. There's two places. The first is you can go to foreflight.com/connect. If you go to foreflight.com/connect, we have a full table there that shows you every device we support and what's supported. Or you can stop by our booth in Hangar C, and we have a printout that has all that same information on it. Other questions? Yes? Yeah, good question. Let me go back to that. So let me switch to my iPad here. There we go. So let me go to a taxi diagram here real quick. Let's pull up Oshkosh. Okay, so the question is, let's say I want to enter a taxi route here, right? So I'll select taxi route. Maybe we want a taxi to runway 9er. Do I have a GPS signal in here? No, I don't. Okay, sorry, I can't actually demo this live, but I can give you the answer. When the line is blue, that's ForeFlight giving you the most efficient way, okay, to get from A to B. But the second you start typing in where you want to go, it'll turn to green, okay? So blue is the ForeFlight recommendation. The green is what you've entered. The idea is, if it's a long taxi route, ForeFlight will try to predict, right, what you're going to get first. So you don't have to type it all in. That's the blue line, the prediction, okay? But as you type, the line will change to green, indicating, oh, this is what you really wanted, okay? Any other questions? Yes, sir. That's a good question. It's a question regarding time formats in our track log export. Offhand, I can't tell you. If you stop by our booth in Hangar C, we can do a deeper dive on it, though. Okay. Cool. Yeah, this is not. Yeah, this is not available on iPhone yet. I don't believe, but coming soon, hopefully. Beta. The 3D view. The 3D view is available on iPhone. Yeah, I'll show you. Okay, if there's no more questions, Thomas and I will stick around a bit. Otherwise, we'll be in Hangar C. Thank you.